Okay, so let's keep going, and now we're at 8.2. What we've done before is we've really computed all of the percentages based upon cost. 8.2 changes it up just a little bit. It simply says now, instead of using cost as the basis or cost as the base, let's go ahead and use the selling price as the base. So when we're talking about using the selling price as the base, then the selling price becomes 100%. So as an example here, finding the markup on selling price is essentially the same formula, except the base is no longer the cost, the base is the selling price. Now the good news is that if we look at how this is all going to work, we're going to use the same setup, CMS, but the difference is now where we had cost as 100%, now S, the selling price, will be 100%. So in our first example here, we see that during a sale, REI sells one model of kids' sunglasses for $39.99. They pay $35 for each pair and calculate the markup on selling price. Find the amount of markup, the percent of markup on selling price, and the percent of cost on selling price. So we're going to go ahead and take our trusted formula. The difference now is that cost is no longer going to be the base. The sales price is going to be the base. What do we have in this problem? REI sells one model of kids' glasses for $39.99. So we know the selling price. They pay $35 for each pair and calculate the markup on selling price. So $35 is the cost. Find the amount of markup, the percent of markup on selling price, and the percent of cost on selling price. So we just have to fill in the blanks here. What do we know? The base now is 100%. This is the base, not the cost, but the selling price. They told us that in the problem. The markup, we're going to take 39.99, subtract from that 35. So we know that the markup is $4.99. Now, based upon the formula we learned earlier, the way we compute this percentage, the markup percentage is going to take the markup and we're going to divide that by the base. In this case, the base is sales price. So $4.99 divided by $3.99 gives us 12%. Now we can compute the cost percentage two different ways. We can, knowing that the sales price is the base, we can take the $35 and divide that by $39.99. We could do that, or we can make our lives a little bit easier and take 100% and subtract from that the 12%, because we know that the cost plus the markup is sales total. So 88% plus 12% equals 100%. Just to confirm, we could have also taken $35 and divided that by $39.99, and that's going to give us 88% as well. A Walmart employee needs a 35% markup on selling price in order to have a markup of $5.16 on a bottle of aspirin. How much can Walmart pay per bottle? What this suggests is that the market is dictating the price. Walmart doesn't have much of a choice in this example. They can only sell this for $5.16. That's just what, so now they've got to work backwards to figure out, well, let's negotiate the cost or the price with the vendor. So they're trying to figure out what can I pay in order to have my markup of 35%. Okay, once you've solved that, go ahead and press pause. Alright, so let's look at what we know. Let's go ahead and clear out the information we had before in our previous. We know that we need a 35% markup, so we're going to go ahead and plug in 35% on our markup. So we know that so in order to have a markup of $5.16, so they give us markup on both the percentage and the dollar amount, so it's $5.16. What do we also know? We know that our selling price is the base, so that's 100%. And we could back into the percentage of cost by taking 100% minus 65, or 35, which equals 65%. I know that the markup is 35% of the sales price. I do not know what my sales price is, but I know that if I have my sales price and I multiply it by 35%, I will get the markup. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to take $5.16 and I'm going to divide that by 35%, and that's going to give me my sales price. Therefore, the cost will be equal to the sales price minus the markup. So it's $9.58. Marilyn Westby must calculate the markup on a Wilson youth tennis racket. The selling price of the tennis racket is $15.99, and the markup is 20% of selling price. Find the markup. Pause and solve. Okay. Selling price, $15.99. Is that right? Yep, $15.99. Markup is 20% of selling price. That's all I really need to know. I know that the selling price is 100% because everything is based on selling price. I also then know that my cost must be 80%. The actual markup, this actually is going to be a little bit easier. I know that the markup is 20% of the sales price, so let's take $15.99, multiply it by 20%. The markup is $3.20. And then just backing into the cost, $15.99 minus the markup of $3.20 gives me my cost of $12.79. Next example, find the markup on a dartboard made in England if the cost is $27.45 and the markup is 25% of selling price. Let's do it. So the cost is $27.45. The markup is 25%. What do I know? I know this is 100%. I know this has to be 75%. So I can jump to the sales price knowing that this $27.45 represents 75% of the sales price. In other words, the way you derive that is you take this multiplied by the 75%, or the selling price, multiplied by 75%, and that would give you the cost. Well, we don't have the selling price, so we can go backwards. $27.45 divided by 75% is going to give us the sales price. $36.60. We'll take the difference between the sales price and the cost, and that's $9.15. A manufacturer makes and sells fishing lures. One lure has a cost of $2.10 and is sold to distributors for $3.20. Find the percent markup on cost and also the percent markup on selling price. Okay, we've got to go back to what we learned in the previous section. Manufacturer makes sells fishing lures. One lure costs $2.10, so that's our cost. $2.10, and is sold to distributors for $3.20. All right, and then we're going to dedicate this section to figuring out the markup based on cost, and we're going to repeat it here where this is going to be the markup based on sales price. So we'll first figure out what the markup is. $3.20. We're going to find the difference between $3.20 and $2.10, and that's $1.10. So we've got the dollar sign, dollar amounts pretty much nailed. Let's go ahead and copy these because this is going to be the same for both the cost, markup on cost, and markup on sales. The difference now is that when it's based on cost, this is 100%. We'll go ahead and go to the sales, and this is going to be 100%. Okay? So now we've got to figure out, plug in the basis for everything else. The markup is percentage. The markup is going to be based on cost. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that computation or find that percentage, we're going to take the markup of $1.10 and divide it by $2.10. That gives me 52%. We'll finish this off. 100% plus 52% gives me 152%. Let's go down to sales. And we're going to do the exact same thing, except the base now is the sales price. So we'll take $1.10. We'll divide that by $3.20. And that's going to give us 34%. And then we just finish this off by taking 100% and subtracting the 34, so it's 66%. I was just looking at the textbook and it looks like these are rounded off. Let me go ahead and increase. So the problem rounded it off to the nearest tenth of a percent. The textbook rounded the answers to the nearest tenth of a percent. So this is more like the solution in the textbook. Okay, so another formula we're going to be learning. And this is how we convert between percent markup on cost to markup percent on selling price. Pretty easy formula. You don't have to worry about memorizing these. These are all lookup formulas as well while you're either completing a quiz or taking an exam or doing the homework. Just look it up in your textbooks. You're going to convert the markup percent on cost to markup percent on selling price, you simply use this formula. Percent markup on cost divided by 100% plus the percent markup on cost. And that's going to give you or equals to the percent markup on selling price. So you start with the cost, markup on cost, convert this using this formula to come up with the percent markup on selling price. So we'll use the formula that we have, the percent markup on cost divided by 100% plus percentage markup on cost. So what do we have? So if I just write this out, plugging in the numbers, we have 25%, and that's going to be divided by 100% plus 25%, or 25% divided by 125%. 0.25 divided by 1.25, which is 25% divided by 125%, gives me 0.2. 0.2 is going to give me 20%. The answer is 20%. If I want to go the opposite direction, we have another formula, pretty similar, but it's different. To convert markup percent on selling price to markup percent on cost, you're going from the selling price now to the cost. The formula is the percent markup on selling price divided by 100% minus the percent markup on selling price, and that's going to give you the percent markup on cost. So the example, or the problem, convert a markup of 20% on selling price to its equivalent markup on cost. Okay, so now that I have my formula adjusted, I can go to the example, to the problem. Convert a markup percent on selling, convert a markup of 20% on selling price to the equivalent markup on cost. Well, here's the formula to convert to a percentage markup on cost. Convert the selling price to the percent markup on cost. Convert a 20%. So we've got our markup percent markup selling price. This is 20%. And that's going to be divided by 100% minus 20%. 100% minus the percent markup on selling price. So then what we have is 20% divided by 80%. 0.2 divided by 0.8, so that the result is 0.25 or 25%. And there's the solution there. Okay, so there's a table here that looks at the markup equivalents. On the left side you see the markup on costs, and then the equivalent markup on selling price. And you can see between those two, rather than having to go through those computations that we just figured out on the percentages, you could just use the lookup tables. A markup on cost is 20%, the equivalent markup on selling price is 16 2/3%. 25% is 20%, 50% is 33 1/3%, 75% is 42 6/7%, and 100% markup on cost is equivalent to a 50% markup on selling price. New York Bagels bakes 60 dozen bagels at a cost of $6.48 per dozen. Generally, the average of 5% of bagels remain unsold at the end of the day and donated to a homeless shelter. If a markup of 50% on selling price is needed, find the selling price per dozen. Now, this one's a little trickier, so I wouldn't expect you to figure this one out. I mean, you could try. Go ahead and pause and try, but let's see what we have though. First thing we need to do is find the total cost to make all 60 dozen. The total cost. So let's do that. So find the total cost to make all 60 dozen first. So let's do that. So New York Bagels makes 60 dozen bagels at a cost of $6.48 per dozen. So we'll take the $60 per dozen, and we're going to multiply that by $6.48. What does that equal? $60 times $6.48. That means our total cost is $388.88. So now we have an element we can actually plug in. Now we have the cost that we can plug into our formula here. I'm afraid you might be losing some of this, so let's go ahead. So we have our cost. We'll go ahead and plug in our cost, $388.80. $388.80. All right. From here, we say, okay, so we have our total cost. Now we're going to use a markup of 50% on selling price. Well, did they give us that? Yeah, they told us. It is a markup of 50% of selling price. Well, the selling price, we don't know, but since it's on selling price, that's going to be 100%. All right. 50% of markup is 50% of the selling price. Well, the selling price then becomes 100%, so let's make sure we've got 100% there. And the markup is now 50%. Well, just by deductive reasoning, you could see that that has to be 50% as well. So we've got the percentages all completed. We know what the cost is. So with the information we have, we can come up with the sales price. We know that our cost is 50% of the sales price. So let's do that. $388.80 divided by 50%. So the total sales that we're going to get out of this is $77.60. We're going to take the difference between the sales price and the cost, and we're coming up with $388.80. So we know our total sales have to be $777.60. Now, we have to be careful though, because when it tells us that we find the number of dozens that will be sold, 100 minus 5% or 95% will actually be sold. What does that mean? That means that if only 95% of what we make is sold, then if we make 60 dozen, bake 60 dozen bagels, okay? So if we make 60 dozen, then we know that 5% are going to be thrown out. So 95% are actually going to sell. So 60 dozen multiplied by the 95% is going to give us 57 dozen bagels that will be sold. So now that we know we need to sell 57 bagels, we know that the total price is going to be, or total revenue is going to be $777.60. We know that we're going to be selling 57 dozen. So what do? We'll take the $777.60, we'll divide that by 57 dozen, and we come up with $13.64. $13.64 per dozen.